Steve Senterfit is the president of Smartbridge, leading a business and digital transformation firm that helps organizations scale, modernize, and execute through complex change. With that, Steve, we're thrilled to have you presenting at the live event, and I very much look forward to hearing your presentation.
Yes, great. So thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here. Appreciate everybody taking the time to join the session today. And so, I'm going to be covering a topic that everybody has heard the term business process automation, but really how things are evolving with it around agentic AI. It really is changing the future for business process automation and driving more business outcomes. When most people think about business process automation, they think about rule-based automation, tasks getting triggered, the system follows a predefined set of steps, the work gets completed. And that's delivered significant value over the years by improving efficiencies, reducing manual efforts, increasing consistency, and allowing people to work on higher value efforts. With the introduction of AI and specifically around the agentic AI that we'll get to, it's going to even take that and amplify it from cycle times, reducing cycle times, making things faster, providing more traceability, automating with accountability, and really helping with improved performance. Or some of the things that we're able to see when we're working with our customers and implementing agentic AI solutions on a number of different type business processes, whether it's marketing, we're very engineering heavy, which I'll talk about what we've done for one of our oil and gas customers. Being in Houston, we do quite a bit in the oil and gas sector. So, the automation phase really is going into a new transformation, and is what is changing is the AI piece of it, allowing the automation to move beyond fixed tasks to more intelligent digital process execution. A useful way to think about it is progressing from prediction to actions, right? AI systems have been, around for a while now, and they've done a great job about, predictive maintenance and some of these other solutions, but now actually taking actions on what they're predicting within reason. And we'll talk about what we mean by that. First, you have the AI models, right? AI does a phenomenal job with machine learning and being able to pick up on signals, look at large volumes of data much faster than what the human can process, right? A human can only process so much information at one time, where AI models can look at significantly higher volume of data, flag risk, flag anomalies, forecast demand, a number of different ways that aspect of AI and those AI models can be used. Then second, you have the generative AI side of things, and it's a little newer. It's been around for a few years now. Really hit when ChatGPT and some of these other generative AI solutions started coming out. But what that really meant was how AI can be used to turn information into usable content, answer questions, summarize information, large volumes of information, answer those questions, explain things about what's happening, and helping people make sense of complex processes or complex information. Now there's the third aspect, and that's the agentic AI. And that is where systems start to take more active role in the process, where based on the signals, right, that they may be picking up from the AI models, they can interpret the context that maybe is being generated by a generative AI solution as some output. And you can use all of this to actually start making decisions on its own. It can reason, if you will, within set boundaries. When we go in and we're working with customers, we're not saying, hey, let's turn AI loose. We put it into defined boundaries with human oversight. And that shift is really what I'm depicting here on this slide, is moving from the rule-based process automation that we've had for a number of years now into AI assisted processes, where the AI is making recommendations, making and guiding the user and the human, and then moving more into where it has some it can act on its own with oversight. So you get the best of all three worlds, right? Speed, control, and performance. And I think that, that is something we're seeing more of now as organizations begin more of this adoption. And it doesn't mean that you're turning the process over to AI and hoping for the best, right? As automation becomes more intelligent, the need for business ownership, oversight, and control becomes that much more important. So the future of business process automation is not just about automating simple tasks. It's more about intelligent execution jointly with AI helping, informing, and acting in certain ways, along with humans being the accountable people within that process as well. And you're able to do more complex automation versus just simple rule based automation. Now, the last slide I talked about how business process automation is moving from task efficiency to intelligent process execution. This slide builds on that around the ideas that show what it actually is changing inside that process, right? Traditional automation still has an important role. There's still a lot that can be done from just traditional process automation. It works well when that process is very stable, it's very rule based, it's clear the steps, there's not a lot of decision points within that and interpretation that has to go on. Where you get into the AI assisted workflows and those processes is where AI can start changing that picture, understanding the context about what's going on. It's still guided decisions, human reviews, recommendations coming from the AI system, but the AI is doing more of it than just, simple task automation. And then when you really get to the right hand side of this is where you start getting into the agentic process execution. And that's where the model, the system you're using, the models that are being run, the signals that are being generated based on those models, the context is being generated based on the AI assisted agents that may be working. You're bringing that together into a dynamic process where, in some cases, you let the AI make a decision on its own based on the context, based on the signals that it has, based on the information that it has. It knows it needs to make certain decisions. It could be kicking off a new process. It could be kicking off an escalation based on the recommendations that it has, based on the rules that it does have defined within it. So you really start moving from a fixed rules process to more of a dynamic process support. So the key message on this slide is that AI agents expand what automation can be done. They make business process automation more flexible, where you can apply it to more complex business processes versus just the task oriented. Now, with that, it doesn't mean that the process becomes ownerless, right? A key piece of introducing AI, it does mean that the process it does become more adaptive, but you also have to build in the safeguards, the guardrails that the system and that solution is going to use and where human fits in from a human in the loop perspective. So AI transformation becomes more embedded in the process. One of the biggest mistakes an organization can make is treating it like a technology and not a business transformation. For AI to create lasting value, the business has to define three clear things very clearly: who owns the process, the outcomes, and where AI should actually add value. So, from an ownership standpoint, what is the process owner? Who's accountable for the decisions, whether that decision is being made by AI or that decision is being made by a person, right? A human. You have to have that ownership, that accountability. What are the decision rights? How do you confine what AI can make those decisions on, the approval points and things like that, where the human still has to get in the loop? That's a critical piece as AI transform work that can be done. The business outcomes. You need to be able to measure the improvements you're expecting, whether it's reduced cycle times, quality, consistency, decreasing costs, increasing revenue. You need to be able to measure this so that you actually know whether AI is making and helping and making the improvements that you are investing to get. And then clearly defining the AI role. Is it just going to be making recommendations? Is it going to be monitoring? What can it automate itself based on the context and based on the information that it gets? Where does it still need to make those recommendations over to a human or an escalation over to the human counterpart, if you will? So governance becomes very practical. Governance is just not a policy document. It's how the organization defines ownership, review cadence, accountability across the business. It means knowing who approves, who monitors, and what steps is the AI going to take versus the human. Another important piece here is that AI should be treated as a capability inside the business, not as a side experiment or just a piece of technology. It needs to be embedded within the business and be viewed, on those same lines. So the message here is AI transformation works when business leads it, technology enables it. The business has to define the ownership, set the outcomes, and determine the role AI should be playing with these new capabilities that are now available to the business. So up to this point, I've been talking about the shift in automation, what AI agents can do, how they can go about it, why the business ownership matters. This slide actually kind of brings it together. And I've kind of streamlined this, not to get really down into the engineering aspects, but this is an example of one that was done for an oil and gas company. And it was done specifically within what's known as their production area of upstream oil and gas. And it had to do with chemical injections. And the business was wanting to reduce the cost without reducing inefficiencies. Many times in that process, people would make recommendations. They would apply the chemical injection to improve production, reduce scaling and corrosion and different things that they have to take care of within those environments. But there wasn't always a great feedback. There wasn't a look back at all of what they had done and how well it was improving, which treatments were better under what conditions. So taking AI and embedding it in there, building the models that can look back historically over the chemical treatments, the outcomes that came out of that, what was the production environment at that time. So looking at all this information, AI is used in this case to make recommendations, to make predictions based on what it has seen in the past, based on what was applied, and make recommendations going forward. This information can even be shared with partners and in this case, chemical vendors that are providing the treatments, the chemicals to the oil company. So they can review the exceptions. Hey, here's what was recommended by the system. The humans, if people we overrode that for whatever reason. They said, nope, that's not what we want to do. We want to do something back. Capturing that information, putting that back into the model so that over time, the system gets smarter. That's a big shift with business process transformation now is when you're using AI, you're going to deploy models, you're going to deploy co-pilots and advanced analytics as part of this. However, you need to be aware that over time, your model needs to be retrained, right? It's going to make recommendations, or maybe it makes a decision, and you're going to want to change that over time, right? It didn't give you quite the results, so you need to retrain the model to make different, or you wanted to override what it recommended. You want the model to know that so that it makes a similar recommendation that you did in the future. So that's a change in even technology solutions, right? A lot of times systems are built, an automation, a business process is automated, and it doesn't get changed unless there's a change in the process or something along those lines, a rule changes. In this case, with AI solutions, there is a component to this that you always have to look at how well your model is performing and retrain it. And it's an ongoing exercise. And the feedback loops are very important in that regard. And it's a shift culturally and from a process standpoint that organizations have to understand going into this type of an operating model. Some of the other aspects here, human in the loop. The reason this matters is the business process involve exceptions, trade off, consequences. There are moments where speed matters, but there's also judgment, and making sure you're embedding a human to be able to look at what the recommendations are, approve the decisions that it might be making. In some cases, it'll make decisions, but also looking back and making sure that you have the audit and the traceability. Those are two things that are very, very important when it comes to these type AI solutions is the audit and the traceability. And the reason for that is we've all seen, regardless of what Copilot, ChatGPT type solution, they have a tendency to hallucinate, right? Well, you need to be able to understand that if you're embedding these type of systems into your business processes. Inevitably, it's only as good as the data that it's using. And if you've overridden something and it doesn't get that information back, then it could hallucinate again and make a wrong decision on your behalf. So the human oversight is more than just looking at the recommendations. It's actually confirming the outcome and the controls. That also gives the business, the leadership, understanding, being able to review the performance and the value that these new systems are providing to the organization and the business processes that you're enhancing with AI. So as I close, the point I want to leave you with is the goal is not autonomous AI, but better business process performance through accountable automation and continuous improvement. That's the lens leaders need to look at this. It's not how much AI can we deploy and how fast we can deploy it. It's how can AI improve the process in a measurable and accountable way for the organization so that you are getting the improved business outcomes that you're looking at, whether it's cost, revenue, quality, customer experience, whatever that case may be. You have to be able to measure it. You have to be able to trace it and see that you have the accountability and the auditability that you need for these types of solutions. And it doesn't matter whether you're building your own or if you're purchasing AI solutions to embed in your business. You need to be able to make sure that you can audit those solutions, that they give you the traceability that the organization can have confidence that it's making the right decisions or the right recommendations for the organization. Then pilot them in a controlled manner, right? Measure the things that matter to the business, not just the performance of the model. Look at the cycle times, quality, consistency. Make sure you have the guardrails in place, the human validation, define the decision points that are necessary. That is where we're able to see organizations go from a pilot to really scaling a solution, is where they look at all three of these areas. The discipline scaling, you have to have that continuous improvement aspect, the feedback loops that are going to go back into the model, back into the AI solution, transparency. Otherwise, people will not want to adopt or trust what the AI solution is trying to bring to the organization. So start focused, govern early, and scale responsibly would be kind of what I would try to leave everybody with.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you for that great deep dive. Coming up in just a few minutes, Steve will be on the next Q&A panel that's coming up. So if you have any questions for Steve related to the presentation, type those into the Q&A box that you see right in front of you, and we'll get to as many of those as we can during the live Q&A panel.